The research stage of every logo design process is really important and you can't skip it. Here are 6 ways that I improved my logo design research process that I personally use in every project. Number 1, you've got to ask the right questions from the beginning. Think of yourself as an archaeologist, someone that's trying to find treasure and hidden meanings in something. You're just digging the side of the business owner or the brand. So you need to ask specific questions to get you to better understand the position of your client and their goals, their target audience, the product or service, and everything you can in order to make it more of a unique logo. If you skip this process, you're probably going to design something that's actually quite basic, and this is what will set you apart from being an amateur logo designer to a professional logo designer. Professional logo designers solve business problems, whereas amateur logo designers just design what the client wants. Ask the right questions so that you can create a more bespoke design and also a more bespoke experience for the clients, and they're going to thank you for it. Number 2, lean into the symbolism and meanings of your images. It's important to find imagery that actually represents and symbolizes what the client is trying to communicate. So for example, the Apple logo, I say this all the time, is not a computer logo. They use the shape of an apple in order to symbolize wisdom and rebellion. That's why it has the bite in the corner, because it comes from the story of the Garden of Eden where Adam and Eve ate the forbidden fruit. So it's got the message of wisdom, rebellion, and also new ideas, which is why their logo used to be Isaac Newton sitting underneath an apple tree, because the apple that fell on Isaac Newton's head helped him to come up with the concept of gravity. So think about the symbolism that you are showing in your logo, and you can find that by doing the right research. Find out what certain shapes mean. A square is used in order to show structure, whereas a triangle is probably used to show strength. If you want something to be softer, use circles, use curved edges. These kind of things send a certain message, either intuitively or very, very loud. So lean into the symbolism of things and the messaging of things, and don't just use surface level imagery. Use imagery that means something. Number 3, and I said this in my last video, don't rely on Pinterest. I love Pinterest. Pinterest is one of my favorite platforms, but even I have to tell myself not to rely on Pinterest or any other platforms such as Behance and Dribbble. They are great, but to start with, please don't use that, because when you go on Pinterest, you're going to be building a bias, and you're going to be seeing a lot of logos that look the same. So you're going to end up designing a logo that looks like the things you have researched rather than the things that are sending the right message. This is why when you go and find logo design research, a lot of the things that you find are very, very similar. It's because a lot of people are just going on Pinterest and looking at the same stuff. And you don't want that. You want to, again, rely on the symbolism and the messaging in your research. So think about the shapes that I talked about earlier. Think about the imagery I talked about earlier. Think about the symbolism I talked about earlier. Your logo should be based off those things and not necessarily fundamentally based off what other people are doing. I think it's fine to get inspiration. I find inspiration sometimes. And I like to see what other people are doing, but I know, like in my mind, that I'm not going to be influenced by what the other designers are doing. Not at the core anyway. I like the way they design, but if I find myself copying something, I have to go back to my research. And this is why it's important to ask the right questions from the beginning and to lean into the messaging and symbolism, because it will become more unique when you start sketching things out. So don't rely on Pinterest and don't rely on Google. Rely on the messaging that you're trying to communicate. Number 4, and this is quite related to my previous point, find real world inspiration. It's important not to rely on the computer or your laptop, because you end up, again, limiting yourself to things that are just on the internet, whereas there's a lot of inspiration outside. I remember when I was in college and we had to do a logo for London Zoo. This was the project. Rather than having us go on the internet and start searching for animals, they actually took us on a trip to London Zoo, and we were able to take pictures of the animals and stuff like that. And we were able to create more unique logos because we had gone to the real world example of what it is and experienced what it's like to be in London Zoo. So even though we were very, very beginner in our graphic design careers, it helped us build a fundamental, I guess, way of working where we look outside the world instead of what's on our computer screens or on our phones to find inspiration. There's a lot of inspiration outside. Have conversations with people. Go to the library, look at magazines, read books. One of my favorite books that I have is Logo Modernism. There's two versions of this thing, Logo Modernism, and I forget what the other one is called, but these are like loads of different patterns and different types of logos that can inspire you. So look outside the world, step away from your computer screen and open your eyes to the world that's outside of you, because there's so much inspiration that you can take. Number 5, collect a range of types of imagery. So don't just stick to like photographs and don't just stick to like images of stuff. That's great, but collect colors, collect color schemes, different types of fonts, collect patterns, collect textures, collect all these kind of things, because they will help open your mind to what your logo could look like. And the color scheme. Remember, you're not just creating a logo, you're probably creating a whole brand. So you need these kind of things to influence you and to draw inspiration from, so that when you get to the design phase, you'll actually find it much easier and it'll be a lot more unique at the end of it. So make sure that you're not just collecting imagery, you're not just collecting other logos, you're actually collecting things that feel in line with what you've researched, even things that are not even directly related to whatever you're designing for. So if you're doing an accountancy firm, it doesn't mean you have to collect pictures of someone holding a calculator. Think about the meaning of the business, because an accountancy firm can be about growth, business growth, and what else grows in the world. A tree. So the logo for an accountancy firm could be related to a tree or the roots of a tree, or a seed. You have to dig a lot deeper. I think a lot of us are looking very surface level when it comes to our design research. You need to dig deeper in order to find things that are more unique to influence you in the design. And lastly, this was a game changer for me in my design process. It made it a lot more efficient between me and the client, and it got me to deliver projects a lot faster. And that is presenting your research in mood boards. This is actually before I design anything. Before I design any logo, I am actually creating about 2 different visual directions, and these are collected from my research. They look entirely different, almost entirely different, and I get the client to choose the one that actually is in the right direction for them and their brand. That way, I don't need to show so many options in the design phase. So I have a mood board number 1, I give it a name, and I have a mood board number 2 and I give it a name, so that they can look side by side and be like, I actually like the direction of this one. Let's say they choose mood board number 1. That way, you're bringing in a lot of visual direction and not just the designing elements. Before you design anything, you can actually be like, oh, I'm going to do some visual direction here and I'm going to guide the client in the right direction. It also brings alignment between you and the client, because you've both decided this is the visual direction we're going in. I'm going to design based on this direction. And because you've both agreed to the direction of the logo, it becomes much more of a seamless process. And also, there's most likely going to be less revisions down the line. So make sure that you present visual mood boards before you actually start designing. So those are my top 6 ways to improve your logo design research. Anything else I've missed out, let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you on the next video.